Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Secretary Noem just runs circles around Dana Bash and not only sets the record straight, but reminds her of why we need people like Elon Musk inside our federal government. Let's dive in.
The Washington Post is reporting that Musk and his Doge team have access to FEMA's sensitive disaster data, which includes personal information about tens of thousands of disaster victims. Have you authorized Elon Musk and his team to have access to Americans' personal data that is housed inside DHS?
Yeah, we're working with them at the president's direction to find what we can do to make our department much more efficient. So I think
yes,
it's
they have
important.
access?
This is essentially an audit of the federal government, which is very powerful and needs to have happen. That agency, and one of the things I've been very clear to the appropriators in the Senate and the House is please give me the authority to reprogram funds. There's
Right,
funds
but that's
that are
different
going.
from him having access to personal data that is housed
The
in
president has
DHS.
authorized him to have access.
And you
to
feel
that,
comfortable
so
with that?
absolutely.
I remember a time when Republicans were very careful about and worried about the government, particularly unelected people.
Well, we can't trust our government anymore.
Having access to personal data.
Yeah. Oh,
But
absolutely.
you are the government.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, is that the American people now are saying that we have had our personal information shared and out
But
there
now
in the
Elon
public.
Musk has access to it.
Yeah, but
He just said
Elon
he
Musk
does.
is part of the administration that is helping us identify where we can find savings and what we can do. And he has gone through the processes to make sure that he has the authority
You're totally
the president has
comfortable with
granted
it.
him. I am today by the work that he's doing by identifying waste, fraud, and abuse. And his information that he has is looking at programs, not focusing on personal data and information.
Not focusing on it, but he
No.
has access to it.
We'll be continuing to talk to him about what all he has access to. But this audit needs to happen to make sure that we are going through a process that adds integrity back into these programs. And people's personal information has been out there in these caseworks that have been closed for a long time, that people are getting responses now that they haven't had before.
Last question. DHS is the third largest cabinet department. How much do you want to shrink your workforce?
Well, we are going to go through that process. I think it needs to be shrunk and get these agencies back on mission. The bureaucracy is large. It's over 260,000 employees, and before, many of them weren't even showing up to work. Many of even the FEMA folks had the option if they wanted to show up for a disaster or not. That's not going to be the way it is anymore. So we're going to have them show up to work. We're going to start going through who is fulfilling their mission and who isn't, and be removing those that aren't committed to keeping America safe. The mission of DHS is to secure the American homeland. That's virtually every person who comes into this country and leaves this country, every product that comes into this country or leaves through our ports or other mechanisms, and also cybersecurity. So anything that happens on the internet and goes into the country or out of the country. So the jurisdiction of DHS is large, but I don't think that the number of people determines our success. It's how much they're committed to doing their job and doing it with excellence.
The whole idea of bringing a Department of Government efficiency isn't just for the jokes, it isn't just for the memes, it's to save the taxpayer, you and me. It's to save us money because in the long run, we can't afford the nonsense. If you look at the U.S. debt clock, we're approaching, I think, $37 trillion in debt. And we didn't used to have this problem 20 years ago. We were approaching a couple of trillion then, but it has ballooned ever since then because of the wars overseas, the boomers retiring, because Social Security and Medicare, those issues are rising. We've got to cut costs somewhere. And so giving out this free money here and there, particularly for USAID, yeah, that's got to be stopped almost immediately. And so that brings us to the most interesting part of this whole discussion, where Dana Bash does bring up at least two solid points, and I'm going to address them here. And point number one is that Republicans used to be very hawkish and very protective of who can and can't have certain access to files in government. What she's really saying is Republicans used to raise Cain when it came to Hillary Clinton having her own email server. Okay, Republicans were right to be mad about that because Hillary Clinton said instead of following basic government protocol, she went off and did her own thing because of course she did. And so that made Republicans rightfully mad, and it even makes us mad to this day. And so Dana Bash is wondering, well, why aren't you mad at Elon Musk? Well, Kristi Noem gives a great answer here. And she essentially says, even though we are the government, even though we are now in charge, we still don't trust this thing. Because we've seen time and time again, remember me mentioning Merrick Garland? This dude weaponized the Department of Justice against the American people. That already is a massive problem, and Dana Bash doesn't really seem unburdened by what has been here, because she fundamentally does not understand that this is a huge problem, mainly because it happened to conservatives and not to liberals, so of course she has no frame of reference for that. But then the other issue, and this is one that does need to be addressed, and liberals are right to raise a red flag here, and I don't fully blame them. The whole idea of Elon Musk operating without ever being elected is now telling the American people what should be cut from the government without congressional oversight or even judicial oversight. That constitutes a bit of a problem, right? Well, except that he doesn't have that power. Okay? And there's two sides to this, and I'll get to the second in a moment. He does not have that power. So having an advisor saying, cut this, freeze this, do X, Y, and Z, yeah, that's not a problem. That's a basic advisor, okay? That's all that's going on right here. Elon Musk doesn't have the power. Donald Trump does. But Trump trusts Musk to get this stuff done because he has had a track record. And so finally, this is the last thing that liberals have a legitimate gripe about, and this is the one that I truly do understand. Having access to a bunch of Americans' technology and identity. That is a fundamental problem, and this is the old left that used to just to scream bloody murder when the Patriot Act was being passed. Now, this left has been very, very quiet ever since Barack Obama got in office, but that's a longer topic for another day. You see, these people are smart enough to know that it's not good for people to have this much access to our private information. To which I want to remind them that Google, Apple, pretty much every member of Silicon Valley, the federal government, probably the CCP, and even the former KGB, now whatever it is over in Russia, probably has access to your information. Okay? I know that these corporations and these members out in Silicon Valley, they know this. Don't go searching for things in incognito mode. There's no point to that. You're going to have to use an entirely different kind of search engine to protect your information. And if you want that, then maybe I can start hawking VPNs. But again, that's another topic for another day. So these people are smart enough to know that's a potential problem, but they're not smart enough to understand that we already have this. Okay, the NSA has this information. The cool thing about America, though, is we have these checks and balances, not just in our government, but in our legal system to protect you from unlawful search and seizure. This stuff isn't going to be used against you in court. So that's the cool thing, that we've already anticipated potential problems like this back during our founding. And so you can make an argument that the fact that they had this info is already a violation of rights, but the reality is, if it's not being used against you in court, I think that's the line. And so for people to clutch their pearls that Elon Musk has our private information and has access to what FEMA has either done right or wrong is not even looking in the right ballpark. They're ultimately just, barking up the wrong tree, which is typical when you're Dana Bash and CNN. And Kristi Noem does a fantastic job explaining exactly what's going on, and she is just getting better and better at her job. I am so glad Donald Trump tapped her for Department of Homeland Security. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politbro. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. And until then, y'all have a good one. And I'm now looking into buying a cowboy hat, all because of your feedback about Kristi Noem last time. So thank you all for that.